Shalom to all my brothers and sisters. Today we're going to be discussing Shemot, Exodus chapter 32, discussing a powerful chapter and understanding what's going on in this chapter. This is such a deep chapter in Shemot, chapter 32. We're going to begin by starting to read the beginning to see what's going on here. This is the incident of the golden calf. When the people saw that Moshe, this is in verse 1 of chapter 32 of Exodus, if you'd like to read along. When the people saw that Moshe took too long coming down from the mountain, the people gathered against Aaron and said to him, "Come, let us make a god who shall be before us. For that fellow Moshe, the leader, who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has happened to him." So we see here that Israel is impatient. Moshe is taking longer than expected. So they want something. We see in this chapter that they want Aaron to create a god for them, literally replacing God himself by an image of a golden calf, something that is an abomination to Elohim himself, something from the land of Egypt, from where they came from, pagan idolatry of image idolatry of the golden calf. Okay? So, Yehovah knows of this thing, because Yehovah knows all things. So therefore he tells Moshe, he says, hurry down, verse 7, hurry down, for your people, who you brought out of the land of Egypt, have acted wickedly. They have been quick to turn aside from the way that I enjoined upon them. They have made for themselves a golden molten calf and bowed low to it and sacrificed to it. And imagine how angry and upset and hurt Elohim must have been when he said these words. And they're saying, the Israelites are saying, "This is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." Imagine the pain in his voice telling Moshe, they are saying that this is the God that brought you out of the land of Egypt. Unbelievable imagery to think what Moshe his eyes must have been wide open, shock, utter shock. What? They're saying this? God himself is saying, they're saying that this golden calf that was created brought them out of Egypt. Not just that this is their God, but this is the God that took them out of Egypt. I want you to understand that it's not just that they made a golden calf, that they made an idol, that they are committing idolatry and blasphemy. But they also were saying that this idol, this worthless statue, made in the image of one of God's creations, an animal, this image is their God and the God of Israel and the God that took them out of the land of Egypt. You have to think about that. It's beyond offensive. So then God tells Moshe, he's basically telling Moshe, I'm paraphrasing here, I've had enough. Enough's enough. I'm going to wipe them out. I'm going to wipe them out. I'm going to create a nation out of you, Moshe. I'm going to start over. I've washed my hands of them. He was hurt, obviously. God has emotions. He gets hurt. He gets pained. We see in the Ten Commandments, and I show this in one of my videos, in the Ten Commandments, he speaks about being a jealous God. Elohim kana. The word kana has the root meaning of the word for discoloration of the face. Literally saying, I'm a jealous God. My face turns color. Almost like blushing and hurt of the thought of you worshiping another God. Now this was before the golden calf, when he was speaking his words to all of Israel in the sight of all 3 million of them. He said, I am a Elohim kana. So therefore, when he was speaking to them, he said that I hurt the discoloration, not literal, but he's saying, I get so hurt at the thought of you worshiping another God that it pains me. He uses the imagery of your face turning color from sorrow and grief. So now it comes to a head. They built the golden calf. And they are not only building it and worshiping it. That's bad enough. That's enough right there. But saying that God took them out of Egypt, so he's had enough. He's had enough disrespect. And we know that it goes on, that they disobeyed further. There's more things. But let's deal with this issue right now. So he tells them to go down, hurry down for them. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, these are stiff-necked people. Now let me be, that my anger shall blaze forth against them, that I may destroy them, and make out of you, meaning you alone, a great nation. I'm going to start over with you, Moshe. That's how upset and crushed and fed up he was at this point. Now, this is a passage that I've gotten questions about. People want to ask, why does Moses say, why are you so upset? Here it always says in verse 11, why are you so, in most Christian Bibles and some Jewish Bibles, it says, why are you so angry with these people? Why? It says why, which doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. What do you mean why? He just told you why. So therefore, the English makes no sense. This is why I said if you start studying the Hebrew, you get a full meaning of what you're missing when you don't have the Hebrew. So most Bibles say that Moses is replying to God and saying, why are you so angry? And why are you going to do all this? And then he goes on and say, what are the nations going to think of you? Blah, blah, blah. But the term why makes no sense. It makes no sense because it's incorrect. The Hebrew there says lama. What does this really mean? It's not saying, why are you going to do this? Well, it's obvious. He just told you why he's going to do this. So it would make no sense for Moshe to say, why are you so angry? Why are you going to do this? We know why. God already told you. So therefore, the English has Moses almost playing dumb. Why are you so angry? Why are you going to do this? No. Lama. The word lama has a significant meaning of, it literally means not why, but it's literally saying, to what end? To what end? That's a better way of saying, to what end? Where is this going to end, your anger? Where is this destruction going to end in the sight of the nations? Not why, but to what end? What is the end of the line with this anger and this action that you plan to take toward Israel, God? That's what Moshe is trying to say to God himself. Okay? So here's another one. To what end? Or it can also say, let not your anger go forth, Yehovah. But the best way to say it is, to what end, not why. So, he says, let not your anger, Yehovah, blaze forth against your people for whom you delivered from the land of Egypt. And he starts to talk down God about his promises. If you read from verse 12 onward, he said, remember the promises you made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and so on. So in the end, he calms God down in a sense and talks him from doing this. Okay? You can imagine the stress level at this point. Moses has dealt with Israel for a long time at this point. Think about, I want you all who are watching to think about the stress level, the grief, everything that Moshe, imagine if you were in Moshe's shoes and you were dealing with God and you had to be the one to, not physically, but in a sense, hold back God from destroying the people. Like, hold on, God, hold on a minute. Wait. To what end is this going to go? Imagine the stress of Moshe. I want you to think about this. The stress, the anxiety, everything. Okay? He finally gets God to say, and I'm generalizing here, fine, go down there and go talk to them. And he calms down, okay? Now think about this. I want you to envision this very powerful image. Moses goes down from the mountain and he sees Israel celebrating, blowing the shofar, dancing, drinking, God knows what. We see it in the scriptures here. But who knows what else was going on. He goes down there. He sees Israel celebrating. You can imagine what he's going through inside of him, going down and seeing it for himself, what God told him they were doing. He's seeing a big New Year's Eve party, so to speak. It's like going to New Orleans and seeing all the abominations going on over there. All for this golden calf, the one thing that they were brought out of Egypt to reject. And it says there, if you keep reading the whole chapter, verse 19 and onward, he was furious. He was so angry that he threw the tablets down, broke them in the sight of all of Israel. If you go on, it's such a powerful image. You can just imagine the stress level. He just held back God from wiping them out. So he's lost it at this point. He come down, he sees it for himself. It's like, after everything he's done, I'm sticking up for you guys, and this is what you do for me? This is what you do to God after everything he's done? I come down there and see what you're doing? He throws down the tablets out of anger and rage. This is powerful. He melts the golden calf, melts it down, melts the gold into the waters that they drank out of. He melts the gold into the waters, and he says, drink it! Drink it! And he makes them drink the water with the gold in the water. Drink it! Drink it. It's a very powerful image. He's had enough. And so, that very day, it says that 3,000 of them were slaughtered. Moses says, now kill them. And 3,000 were put to the sword. Now we must understand, a lot of Christians and Messianics will look to this story misguidingly and call all of Israel into sin, that all of Israel sinned. The majority of Israel did sin, but only 3,000 were put to death by the sword. The rest of them did get punished, the ones who were part of this. It was not all of Israel. So we go on with the story. It gets really intense. Verse 30, after this horrifying scene was done, the next day Moses said to the people, this is verse 30, you have been guilty of a great sin. Great sin, Israel. This is Moshe speaking to the Israelites. You have been guilty of a great sin, all of you. And now I'm going to go up to Yehovah. Perhaps I may win forgiveness for your sins. Maybe he'll forgive you guys for what you did to him. Turn your back on him after everything he did. Took you out of Egypt with the 10 great plagues over Egypt. Took you out of Egypt. Parted the Sea of Reeds. Guarded you. And what do you do in return? I'm going to go up to the mountain and plead for your forgiveness. So verse 31 says that Moses went up to the mountain to Yehovah and said, these people are guilty of a great sin in making for themselves a god of gold, he tells Elohim. Now, I'm basically paraphrasing here what Moshe is saying in verse 32. He says, now, Elohim, if you will forgive their sin, well and good. If you will not forgive their sin, God, please blot me, out of your book of life. Take me out of your book of life. Write me out of your book of eternity. That means the world to come. You can wipe me out of that book of life for their sins. I'll give up my hope in the future resurrection for the sins of the nation. Now think about the honor and the person of Moshe to go face to face with Elohim, your creator, and say, take my name out of the book of everlasting life for the sake of these wicked sinners. That tells you what kind of leader Moshe was. What kind of a person Moshe was. Why Moshe is considered one of the greatest prophets, ever in history. His all heart. That's why we love Moshe so much. He didn't want to be chosen. He said, pick someone else. I got a speech problem. Pick someone else. He tells God face to face, just take me out of your book of life. Take me out. Only forgive them, please, God. What does God say? What does he say? Verse 33. And Yehovah said to Moshe, no. Only one who has sinned against me will I erase them from my book of life. God is saying, you're not going to die. You will not die. No one dies for the sins of another. The person that sinned against me, I will blot his name out of my book of life. Face to face, Moshe offered his life for the sins of the nation, and God said, no. Nobody dies for the sins of another. The person that sins will die. So the moral of this story is that it's consistent with the Hebrew Scriptures. For example, Ezekiel chapter 18, the whole chapter says the same thing that's written here in the Torah. Over and over in chapter 18. For if the wicked person turns from their sins and does what is righteous and good in the eyes of Yehovah, I will not only forgive them, but also not remember the sin against them. You can find this in Ezekiel chapter 18. Start in verse 20. Go through the whole chapter. Nobody dies for the sins of another. So in this powerful chapter, so much is going on here. So much emotion. So much that Moshe had to deal with in God himself. And it's such a powerful chapter. But in the end, after all is said and done, God said, every person is responsible for their actions. And that is the lesson of this video presentation. God himself says to Moshe, the person that sins will die. You will not die for the sins of another. And we see this over and over in Tanakh. God is very clear and explicit. So this is one of many reasons why the notion that any person, human being, or angel, or whatever you want to call them, cannot die for our sins because it goes against what God said himself. No one dies for you. You are responsible for your own life. Don't blame it on Satan. Don't blame it on some entity. Don't say, oh, well, Jesus forgave me already. I sinned, but Jesus forgave me. No. Own up to your own responsibilities. If you get an extra $20 bill at the grocery store, don't take it and put it in your pocket and say, you know what? The grocery store makes millions of dollars. They can get the 20 back. Think about the person that might get fired because you took that 20. Do the right thing. You make a choice to give that $20 bill back. We are responsible for our actions. We make choices. We have our own inner Satan who tempts us to do evil, to make choices. That's what a conscience is. A conscience is good, but we also have our Satan, inner Satan, which is our evil influence, our evil inclination, which I mentioned in my other videos. So therefore, the lesson of this video, be responsible, make the right choices, own up to your own actions, and make that change. Shalom.